If you're going to expect anything, expect that it will be difficult, but also expect that it will be well worth every blood, sweat, and tear. If you're interested in learning about the 10 things that I wish I would have known before I got married, then stay tuned, because all that's coming up next. Hi, I'm Rachel Humphreys. I'm the creator of Mental Health Mastery Academy, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Today's video is going to be on the 10 things that I wish I would have known before I got married. That's not to say that I wouldn't have still gotten married, but there's a lot of things I've learned along the way, and some of them I learned the hard way. Marriage is perhaps the most serious contract that you'll ever sign. How many contracts do you sign in your life? Do you agree to share in everything with another human being 50%? And that you will take on all of their debts. You will take on the responsibilities. Anything that you acquire, they are entitled to half of, in order to separate, to dissolve that contract, can potentially destroy years or even decades worth of growth and structure building. I think as a young girl, you're made to believe that love and marriage is some sort of fairy tale, and that the hardest part of the journey is finding your Prince Charming, and then once you find him, you ride off into the sunset. Now, that's not to say that I thought marriage would be completely easy and a walk in the park, but I do think that growing up listening to fairy tales and stories and seeing things in the media and in movies and that depict love and marriage and partnership as some sort of fairy tale when it just simply is not, although it can be, but that the fairy tale doesn't come until you make it so, and that it's often a lot more difficult before it becomes easy, or easier, I should say. Marriage is the most difficult self-help course you will ever take. So I'm a bit of a self-help junkie. I'm passionate about that in the work that I do because I'm passionate about it as a person and as an individual. If you want to really up-level yourself as a human being, get married. Because if you are committed to the process and you're committed to your partner and you're committed to your marriage, unless you're going to dissolve it and end it, which we already talked about can be an extremely difficult, expensive, and painful process, then you're left with the option to just do the work. And there's no way that you can truly show up for another human being and truly have a successful partnership unless you're willing to also accept your own role and responsibility in life's challenges or the difficulties that you're facing. Or it's free in a sense, right? It's not a $30,000 coaching package or a weekend retreat with some guru. It's just everyday life with the person that you love and learning how to face yourself in the mirror through the eyes of your partner and being forced to rise to the occasion and humble yourself in the process again and again and again. And I've learned that it's way easier to fix and to build or repair something than it is to destroy and recreate all over again. So it's not always initially in the moment or in the short term, it's not always the easier choice to repair and to build and continue on even when it feels like you're trudging through mud. That's not always the easiest choice or the most gratifying or pleasurable one in the moment. However, in the long run, you'll do so much better to just continue to build upon a foundation. And that truly is something that is such a valuable lesson that marriage has taught me, is the value of foundation building. I'm a very impulsive person. I struggle with a little bit of impulse control. Being someone who has struggled with addictions and things in the past, I am more susceptible to moving quickly or to doing things that are stimulating or gratifying. And so marriage really has taught me to shoot roots and to build and to grow and to force myself to stay put and to just keep showing up and doing the work every single day when maybe my little inner child or even my ego just wants to fly or to run or to escape, or my inner warrior wants to smash or destroy. And so it's really, marriage has really taught me the value of that. And I wish I would have understood that before I got married and known the value of that. And perhaps I would have been a better person for it. I would have been a better future partner for my spouse because I would have built more in my life and taken more care and consideration for certain areas of my life, such as my finances, because I would have put in the work for myself and then been better prepared to put in that type of work for and with another human being. Another lesson that I've learned, something I wish I would have known, was that charity overrules selfishness every time. And the concept that selfishness could lead to ruin or destruction or is not a good thing, I mean, that's nothing novel or new, but to really understand what charity is and what charity means and how it feels, what it looks like to actually be charitable to another human being or within a relationship, and to learn to set aside selfishness and to even recognize just how selfish you are, as we all are, right? From childhood, we're built and bred to be a selfish and self-gratifying human being, and not necessarily in a negative way. It's just that we learn the importance from a survivalistic standpoint to have our needs met, but that doesn't always translate well into a relationship, nor does it translate well into long-term marriage and sustainable partnership. So the more that you can learn to embody charity, and the more that you can learn to be a charitable human being just in general, but as it particularly pertains to your marriage and your partnership, and forego your own needs or forego your selfish desires or forego your ego's need for gratification, then you will come out on top. Now, I've also learned the value of humility. Humility is something that I've struggled with in my life. It's not an easy thing to do, because especially if you've been hurt many times, if you've experienced a lot of trauma, and the only way you learn to get through that sometimes is to build yourself up so much that you feel unbreakable and you feel unstoppable and invincible. But sometimes there's a fine line there where that courage and that tenacity and that inner strength and confidence can cross over into grandiosity or into ego or selfishness. And so really learning to be humble and learning to say you're sorry and learning to take responsibility and learning to take a hit every now and then, or to maybe take more of the responsibility than you need to at times. These are things that help you to be humble and help you to be a good support to your partner and to maintain health within the relationship. And it's not easy. It's not easy when you're embarrassed to admit that you were wrong. It's not easy to say you're sorry when you feel like someone else should say they're sorry first. And to open up or to be vulnerable. All of these things are really important to healthy communication and to transparency between you and your partner. I wish I would have learned more and the healthy boundaries there, because it's also important not to be too humble, right? To where you're being boundaryless and where you're being a pushover or you're being weak or not having a voice, because you do a disservice to yourself and to your partner when you're that way as well. So it's about finding that healthy medium between that middle ground between having boundaries and standing up for yourself and having a voice and an opinion, but also being humble and knowing when to be submissive or when to be forgiving and to have an open heart. And another lesson is that marriage is not like dating. I think for those of us who like to live life with a lot of variety and dynamics and excitement, it can be easy to fall into the trap to where you want things to continue to always be stimulating and exciting, and you get used to the way that dating was, when you're always doing new things and you're out and about a lot and there's a lot of new and first times and excitement. But the reality is that long term, that marriage is not that. And that's not to say that you can't continue to bring excitement and passion and zest into the relationship, because that is important, and you can do that and you should do that. But not to think that marriage is going to be like this eternal honeymoon. And I think that feeds into the other earlier lesson of that marriage is not a fairy tale. And so we see so much imagery and we get so much education within the media that tells us that this is how it's going to be. And or they show the alternative, which are these very tumultuous relationships and people being very ugly towards each other and really volatile and just unkind or even inhuman dynamics. And so it kind of creates this black or white perspective on marriage and partnership and relationship, that it's either going to be this blissful, exciting, passionate, sweeping, almost dating honeymoon-like experience, or it's going to be this dull, dead, toxic, tumultuous dynamic. And it's not so. I think it's important to do things to continue to show your partner that you care, and to do things that keep up your physical appearance and your health and your level of attraction towards your partner, and to stay remaining attractive for your partner. All of this, right? And bringing passion and zest, but also to understand that sometimes it's just taking care of kids or dogs or keeping a clean home and everyday humdrum and routine. And sometimes money's there, sometimes money's not. So there's not always going to be the opportunity, and it's just not realistic to have constant stimulation. So it's really important to learn to stimulate yourself and to find fulfillment within your hobbies, within your interests, within your work, or within your household duties, within being a good husband or wife, mother, father, friend. So I wish I would have known that more, and I would have been better prepared to just get into the flow. And I think when we have expectations, it breeds discontentment and it can breed resentment. And when we're constantly expecting something, especially something that may be unrealistic, it does no good for us or for the relationship or for the family unit. And another lesson, something I wish I would have known, was that you need to go all in or you shouldn't go in at all. And what's funny is that I'm by nature a really all in kind of person. I kind of don't do anything very small. It's go big or go home. I do things loud and bold and fast and with a lot of energy and passion. But early on and for, in the earlier years of my marriage, I don't think that if I was going to assess myself honestly, I was as all in as I could have been and should have been. And that's not to say that I wasn't committed, but was I attacking At times, yes, and at times, no. And we all know what that feels like, to have that just burning passion, all intensity, all in mindset where it's do or die, come hell, rain, fire, water, you're going to succeed. That kind of mindset, that kind of fury, it's unstoppable. It's an unstoppable energy. And failure is non-negotiable. That's what I lacked. And that's what that I wish I would have really known and really possessed, because I could have been a better partner to my husband early on, and I certainly could have saved myself certain levels of frustration or certain difficult lessons that I had to learn along the way. And another critical lesson that I wish I would have learned is that money and stuff should always come second. And that sounds like a no-brainer, but how many of us have put desires to own a home, or desires to have certain material belongings, or desires to have certain economic status, to appear a certain way, to have certain luxuries, or how many of us have put those needs and those desires and wants above humans at some point or time or another? I think if we're really honest with ourselves, many of us, at least here in American society, have done it or do it on a frequent basis. And we shouldn't love stuff, and we shouldn't love people or things more than we love people. And that money comes and goes, stuff comes and goes. And me and my husband have certainly seen that along our journey. What matters most is people and the love. And if you can have happiness and joy and unity even when everything else has been stripped from you, then you will have an unbreakable marriage, and you will have an unstoppable relationship. So it's really important to, at all times, remind yourself that money and stuff must come second. It must. And that's something that I would have wished I would have really, really known at a soul level and embodied before I got married. Because money is not the root of all evil, but it certainly can be the source of great evil if allowed to be used as a weapon in that way. And I also feel that I think that the final lesson, that number 10 thing that I wish I would have known before I got married, which is the best of them all, is just how fulfilling being and having someone of that capacity in your life, how rewarding that can be. It's having a partner, your ride and die, so to say, right? Someone who loves you unconditionally, who loves you when you're fat, who loves you when you're thin, who loves you when you're rich, who loves you when you're poor, who loves you when you're immature, and who loves you when you're in beast mode, who loves your faults, your flaws, and your strengths and skills, who's willing to stand by you no matter what, who will support you and be there for you even when they are unhappy with you or may not like you in the moment. And to have that kind of trust with another human being, to see yourself alongside another person, and the two of you weather many storms after, one after another together, and to have the rewarding fulfillment and the sense of security. I've had so many relationships come and go in my life, and I've had very few men in my life, if any, that really have stood by me in that capacity. And I'm just so grateful for what I've been able to learn about how good that feels, and how much safety it can bring, and how much security it can bring. But the key to that is that you can't just want that from another person. You have to be willing to be that for them as well. And in your showing up for them in that way, you're staying committed, you're loving them through thick and thin, and never giving up is what then lets them feel safe enough to do the same. And when two people decide to show up like that, come hell, rain, fire, water, I'm going to love you, I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to support you, then you're unstoppable and you are unbreakable. And it is the most rewarding and fulfilling thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I'm so grateful for it. And if I had known what that would feel like, but if I'd also known what it would require, I would have done a lot more preparation before I got married. And I think I would have been a better partner, a better mate, and I would have been better prepared, and marriage wouldn't have been as hard. But there goes to say that life is always, hindsight is 20/20. So perhaps those are things that I couldn't have learned until I first made the step to enter into a commitment. It's interesting how sometimes we don't learn lessons. We can't even have the opportunity to learn something until we've first mastered something else. And by unlocking one door of mastery, we open up the opportunity to up-level in new ways. And then when we master those, it opens up new doors. And so it's really hard to say in hindsight how much I could have accomplished or achieved outside of marriage, and what really could have only been achieved within the confines of marriage. And either which way, I'm just grateful that I learned these lessons and things that I wish I could have known, but maybe I couldn't have. So if you are considering getting married, it's a wonderful thing, and I would encourage you to do so. Do not be afraid. And if you know that you love this person, then know that as you enter into that marriage, go all in. And just, if you're going to expect anything, expect that it will be difficult, but also expect that it will be well worth every blood, sweat, and tear. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'd love for you to leave comments below if you're married, and if you are thinking about getting married, and what your experiences have been, and what is the number one lesson that you've learned, and or what is the number one thing you would have wished you would have known before you got married. Thank you so much for your time and your energy here today. As always, much love, and I'll catch you next time.